Okay. Selamat pagi. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today with us. She said, my name is Matt Backhouse. I'm the head of stray animal care working for PAWS International throughout Southeast Asia. I'm really honored to be invited to speak at this inaugural animal welfare conference in the beautiful city of Jakarta. And I hope this is the first of many opportunities to work together and improve the lives of both people and animals across Indonesia. I'm grateful to our partners at JAN for their hard work and effort to coordinate this event, to our colleagues from the Hasanuddin University for their enthusiasm and foresight to include animal welfare and shelter medicine in their elective curriculums, to our hosts at the beautiful Grand Mahakan Hotel, I hope I said that right, for such a wonderful location for all of us to meet here today, and of course all the attendees, honored guests, experts and professionals who are with us today. Really thank you. And last but not least, thank you to our online attendees, wherever you are around the world. Thank you for your time and attention today. And I'm looking forward to taking questions and comments throughout the day. So with that said, I'm going to talk a little bit today about animal welfare, the concepts of One Health and One Welfare, and why we believe these issues are fundamental for the health and well-being of human and animal populations across the world. I'll talk a little bit about PAWS, our history and our work in the region, and then talk about these subjects in a little more detail. So next slide, please. Okay, so PAWS is a global animal welfare organization. It was founded in 1988 by Heli Dungler, who's sadly no longer with us, but now continues to work in 15 countries with our headquarters in Vienna, Austria. In those 15 countries, 11 of those we have sanctuaries for rescued animals, and we run programs on farm animals, wild animals, companion animals. We do disaster preparedness and disaster response, and we also focus our attention now on emerging pandemics and the climate crisis. PAWS wants to see a world where animals are treated with respect, empathy, and understanding, and we recognize that animal health and welfare is intrinsically linked to human health and welfare, and that our treatment of animals directly influences and affects the world around us. This, in essence, is the One Health concept, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that shortly. Next slide, please. Okay. I think my beard is crackling on the microphone. Okay. So I'm just going to explain a little bit about the Stray Animal Care Partnership Program that we run in Southeast Asia. So we have 7 partners in 5 countries, 3 of those partners here in Indonesia, Jakarta Animal Aid Network, Purnatura in Balikpapan, and Bali Animal Welfare on Bali. What we do there is we work to build capacity and support local groups to develop and enhance their already existing programs to make them more sustainable and more impactful. We work with multiple stakeholders to ensure that our projects are able to realize their maximum potential. And this, I believe, is the key to future success, working together for good. So as I say, we work mostly with companion animals in a variety of different ways. We work with communities to humanely manage dog and cat populations and implement robust and effective rabies control programs. We develop educational programs such as the animalwelfare.id platform, which we're going to be talking about a lot today with our friends at JAN. We work to improve the lives of animals in shelters and to reduce populations by promoting and encouraging adoption culture, responsible pet ownership, and actually trying to reduce the number of animals in shelters in more humane and sustainable ways. So what has this all got to do with One Health? Well, everything. Next slide, please. Good. Okay. So the One Health approach basically is the concept that I think has been understood by people for more than a century, and I would argue longer than that. And the principle is that the human, animal, and environmental health are interdependent, and they are bound to the health of the ecosystems in which they exist. Now, the concept of One Health is recognized by leading scientific authorities as being fundamental to the health and success of our global community, with organizations like the United Nations, FAO, World Health Organization, the World Organization for Animal Health, agreeing that this critical control of priority zoonotic diseases such as rabies, avian flu, Ebola, and other and issues that are now coming to the front, such as antimicrobial resistance, food safety, climate change, and biodiversity, all are considered within a One Health approach. Simply put, it's the idea that we're all connected and that with the dwindling resources we have on this one precious planet that we all share, for too long we've operated in silos of expertise which have failed to acknowledge these problems in a holistic and inclusive viewpoint. Next slide, please. Okay, so all of us have suffered through the last 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's affected people across the globe. As the world continues to recover from this, it now indicates more than ever that we have to recognize the impact of how we treat animals and how we treat the planet, and understand the need to change moving forward to ensure safety of our global community. It's been shown that there is a high risk for emerging pathogens and zoonotic diseases, with approximately 60% of all emerging and re-emerging pathogens having their origins in domestic or wild animals. And 75% of these infectious diseases and zoonotic diseases also originate with animals. So zoonosis is the definition of those diseases which can pass between animals and humans. Not only that, but the widespread use of animals in industrial agriculture has very severe consequence for the climate and the downstream impacts of that industry, and also again poses a threat to human populations across the globe. It's been estimated that there are still 1.7 million unknown viruses in wild mammals and birds. And of these, approximately 700,000 still have the potential to cross over to humans. This is a serious and immediate concern and not to be taken lightly. Next slide, please. In Southeast Asia, like many countries around the world, wet markets, live animal and wet markets are a traditional and familiar sight. And they offer local people the opportunity to buy and sell different animal products and to make a living. This is a reality that has to be considered as part of the One Health model. So One Health will consider the socioeconomic factors related to income, food security, and dependence on farming and livestock for people to survive. More than 75% of the billion people who live on less than $2 a day around the world depend on subsistence farming and raising livestock to survive. However, the recent history of outbreaks such as coronaviruses, avian influenza, and other communicable diseases has illustrated that these wet markets are a severe and real kind of origin for zoonotic diseases and can pose severe threats to human health, livelihoods, and well-being. So although we need to consider that people need to make a living and we need to support people who are living in desperate and difficult conditions, we also have to look at the longer view of what that downstream impact is going to be around the world. The dog and cat meat trade, as we're going to hear more about in our presentations from our friends at DMFI, from my PAWS colleague Karen, poses another serious threat to humans and animals. It not only undermines rabies control efforts around the world, but also can contribute to emerging zoonotic diseases and potential future pandemics. And I think these pictures here show the kind of terrible scene that really shouldn't be taking place in a world that would treat animals with respect, empathy, and understanding. Next slide, please. Okay, so today I'm only able to give a short overview of what to me is a very fascinating but complicated field of study. It's continuing to develop and generate excellent research and literature, which is hopefully able to guide and inform all of us on how we can all play our part in a One Health model for the future, not just animal welfare professionals, veterinary professionals, but everybody. At PAWS, we're working hard to ensure that the science and studies we undertake are shared and distributed and available for people to access. And we also work with other organizations, and this is why we're here today, because we want to collaborate, exchange information, exchange learning, so that we can all work together towards this common goal. With that said, and sorry, I should add as well that the reports that you're seeing on the screen here, we're going to make available to share our resources at the end of this presentation. And there is a whole wealth of good information that we will collect together for you to read in your lunch break, maybe. So with that said, it's important to recognize the key role that veterinarians do play in ensuring the health and safety of the animals that they share the planet with, because they are the leaders in their communities who people look to for advice and guidance on how to interact with animals. It really fills me with hope to be at an event like this today in Indonesia, which is recognizing the need for education, cooperation, and knowledge exchange. It really does fill me with optimism for the future. So I'm just going to move on now to the next slide and talk a little bit about my final subject of One Welfare. So in a similar way to how the relationship between animal and human health is considered under a One Health model, there is also a really strong link between animal welfare and human well-being. I imagine all of us here today are animal lovers. That's why we're in this room. And you know the feeling and the kind of the peace and calm that you get by spending time with the animal, whichever species that might be, that makes you happy, right? I go home and I see my dogs. I just feel happy. I feel good. I feel relaxed. This is in essence kind of what One Welfare is speaking to. So whereas animal welfare, as you can see on the quote at the top from the American Vet Medical Association, animal welfare is a characteristic which is inherent to the animal. So it's the condition of the animal and its state of being. Whereas One Welfare is more about this interconnection and the relationship between animal health and human health and well-being. So One Welfare is quite a new term. It's an emerging field of study, and it looks at these issues from a wider kind of global holistic perspective. So as I mentioned, it's not only referring to animal welfare, but also human welfare, societal mental health, the good of communities where people interact with animals, as well as the environment, conservation, and biodiversity. So the One Welfare movement acknowledges that health is a significant component of good welfare, and that good and optimal health includes well-being as a shared goal. Next slide, please. So One Welfare is taking the One Health concepts and ideas and it's applying them to welfare and environmental issues. This is where I believe that veterinarians and animal welfare professionals should be leading advocates of these principles and of animal welfare, whether that's relating to companionship, food production, medical research, however humans and animals interact in the world. We need to be aware of those interactions between humans and animals and the impact that we have on each other and on the environment around us. For example, there's evidence that better animal welfare for farmed animals results in improved food safety, because stressed animals that are transported and put through severe stress before slaughter have been shown to release more pathogens, such as E. coli and Salmonella, which also then results in cross-contamination and ultimately ends up in the people, the humans who are consuming those animal products. Another example, which is more specific to my field, would be that of communities that live with companion animals, dogs and cats in this instance, in their communities. So when a government or a local authority implements culling as a method of rabies control or population management, research into that has shown that the outcome of these culling campaigns was determined not just to only be ineffective, counterproductive, and not cost effective. It's usually met with strong opposition from local communities who view it as being at odds with their community values. So instead of doing that, we need to work together with communities. We need to talk to pet owners. We need to talk to people in communities to implement comprehensive cooperative programs that will have a higher acceptance level from those communities and will ultimately have a more positive impact for humans and animals. This is really about considering how we work holistically and in cooperation with everybody, rather than doing something that looks on paper to be correct, but in reality just doesn't work. Other examples, where we work cooperatively with animals, we can look at animal-assisted therapy. PAWS runs a really excellent program in Eastern Europe where we have dogs that have been rescued and rehabilitated who then become therapy animals to support children and young adults with learning difficulties and behavioral problems, and they're there to support and help as a therapeutic animal. We cooperate with a group in Cambodia who use working dogs to sniff out and detect unexploded landmines, which has been a devastating problem for the people of Cambodia. And still to this day, in 2022, people still can't walk safely through the fields around their homes for fear of these unexploded devices. So again, this is how we can look to work cooperatively together with animals for the good of communities. So all that being said, my overall point is that outreach and community projects should take into account One Health and One Welfare. Through this lens, the increased empathy, compassion, and stewardship of people like early career veterinary professionals and other animal welfare experts can lead to improved animal and human health, and thus community health overall. A final example that I want to make, just back to my previous slide on wet markets and the dog and cat meat trade, to be specific. Throughout our investigations and throughout the time we've been working on these programs, we've seen so many young children who are exposed to the brutal and graphic slaughter of animals on a daily basis. If it's their family business or it's in their communities, they're going to the markets where animals are being killed. And it's been proven that children are more likely to develop experience traumatic responses to these kind of situations, and potentially develop an immunity or become desensitized to violence as they develop into adulthood. There's also been multiple studies and lots of research in the US which shows a direct correlation between levels of domestic abuse and violence in communities, including violent crimes, crime against women and children, and their proximity to large slaughterhouse facilities. I mean, it makes sense, if somebody is killing animals day in, day out, they're going to become immune to this kind of violence. But that carries forward, that generational trauma is inherited, and it in turn makes a more desensitized and less compassionate society for all of us. So we believe that teaching compassion, kindness, and empathy is undoubtedly going to have more positive outcomes for communities across the world than seeing violence and death on a daily basis. So again, lastly, I want to mention and congratulate the work the veterinarians and animal professionals do. And it saddens me to say that veterinary professionals in particular have one of the highest suicide rates of any profession. This is difficult work. People work because they love animals, and they often see the worst side of animals and how humans have treated them. One Welfare as well needs to consider the emotional and mental safety of animal care professionals and veterinarians in particular, and protect and support people who work in these difficult and emotionally challenging roles. As I said before, One Welfare needs to consider the whole scope of a situation to improve well-being of animal and human communities. So as the famous saying goes, every journey starts with a single step. I believe that events such as this mark the beginning of a journey towards a kinder, safer world for humans and animals. While the problems that we're facing are undoubtedly large and very complex, we can and must work together to be the change that we want to see in the world. By learning and integrating these One Health and One Welfare models into our systems and education for the future, such as the programs through universities and the education that's targeted to children and young people as they grow and develop into the adults of the future, we can improve the health and well-being of people, animals, and the planet, the one planet that we all live on together. I would argue that that is of the utmost importance for the future of all of us. Thank you so much for your kind attention. I'm really looking forward to listening to all the rest of the day's presentations. We've got some amazing and fascinating subjects, and to speak to you all throughout the day. So thank you.